Welcome to Ping Pong Dreams, a place where each rally is more than a point, each paddle swing is a heartbeat, and every match becomes a story of resilience, sacrifice, and unwavering spirit. This isn't just a sports podcast, it's where athletes become symbols, and where the sound of the ball echoes with meaning far beyond the table. In a world where speed defines greatness, where blistering loops and thunderous smashes dominate the headlines, somewhere quietly, someone walks the opposite way. He doesn't charge forward like a storm. He doesn't overwhelm opponents with brute force. Instead, he steps back, slowly, calmly, resolutely. While the world worships attackers, he chose to believe in defense, not as an act of retreat, but as a way to fight. He stood steadfast like the final wall, unbreakable. People once called him outdated, a relic in the age of power. But then the world fell silent as he carved a path to the World Championship finals using nothing but grit, precision, and patience that bordered on obsession. This isn't a fairy tale. It happened. Today, we relive the journey of a man who transformed defense into poetry. A maestro whose blade became his brush, and each chop, each block was a stroke of art. This is the story of Joo Sae-hyuk, the last fortress of modern table tennis. In a sport overtaken by blistering pace and relentless offense, it's almost surreal that someone chose to walk the path of resistance. Not with flair, but with heart. Not to destroy, but to endure. Joo Sae-hyuk, the man who made the world pause, not with flashy shots, but with timeless courage. Born in Gangwon Province, South Korea, where snow blankets the mountains and silence lingers, Joo grew up in the stillness of nature. Perhaps that environment etched into his soul a quiet strength and deep resilience. While others chased attacking glory, Joo was captivated by the subtle beauty of defense, the low, spinning chops, the quiet redirection of force. He didn't just choose that path, he embraced it, fully. Joo didn't defend to avoid defeat. He defended to survive, to fight back, to make his opponents swing once more, and then again, until it was them who cracked. Under his hand, defense stopped being reactive. It became its own language, each chop a note in a song, every block a line in a poem. In 2003, at the World Championships in Paris, something unthinkable happened. A defensive player, Joo Sae-hyuk, powered his way to the final. Round after round, he outmaneuvered some of the best players in the world, not with aggression, but with surgical precision. The arena in Paris held its breath during his matches, and when he stood on the podium with a silver medal, people didn't see a runner-up. They saw a warrior, a guardian of a vanishing art who brought defense back into the spotlight. From that point, he became a living legend, not for racking up titles, but because he made you feel something. He made Ma Long hesitate. He made Zhang Jik pause. He made Timo Boll grind. Joo wasn't faster. He wasn't stronger. But he had something they didn't: inhuman patience. When others would have folded after 5 or 10 attacks, Joo returned each ball like a stone skipping across water. Calm, deliberate, never cracking. For over a decade, he refused to conform. As the game accelerated around him, Joo kept sharpening his tools, spinning deeper, defending wider, and mastering his emotions. He played through injuries, wrapped knees, bandaged wrists, yet never once did he quit. For Joo, every match was a battle, not to win, but to stand tall. But behind that calm and strength was immense suffering. He was never granted the luxury of ease. For a defender, every rally is a marathon. While others score in 2 hits, Joo has to cover 3 times the ground, chop 10 times more, and wait for errors. Chronic wrist pain, back injuries, torn ligaments. The list never ends. More than once, doctors urged him to retire. But Joo kept coming back, not out of recklessness, but because he couldn't bear to sit out while his teammates fought. At one point, he lost nearly all power in his dominant wrist. Doctors warned, "One more tournament and your hand might never recover." Joo simply smiled and said, "I don't need it to last forever. I just need it to work for tomorrow." And that tomorrow became months, years. Every comeback, every swing, bandaged and bruised, but never broken. He rarely sought the spotlight. In big tournaments, cameras zoomed in on attackers, and Joo was often overlooked, called an interesting underdog or a curious survivor in a modern game. But once the match began, rallies stretched, points became marathons. His chops, so venomous and deceptive, made even the most powerful players miss wildly. And the audience, they stood and applauded. Not for the win, but for the spirit. Japanese fans once dubbed him the Korean samurai of defense. not just for his tenacity, but his grace. On court, Joo was a picture of respect, no theatrics. Win or lose, his eyes stayed steady, deep, intense, focused entirely on the ball and the battle ahead. There were points that lasted so long you forgot to breathe. One unforgettable rally against Chushin stretched beyond 50 shots, a breathtaking exchange of power and poise. The entire stadium rose to its feet. They didn't care who won that point. Everyone knew. The hero was Joo. In the twilight of his career, his legs weren't as quick. He couldn't retreat as deep as fast. But Joo had something age could never steal: wisdom. His ability to read an opponent, the flicker in their eye, the angle of their foot, the slightest shoulder shift, allowed him to anticipate shots like he was inside their mind. He didn't need to react. He was already there. Few defenders in history have reached the top 10 in world rankings for years on end. Joo did. What he accomplished was thought to be impossible. And to this day, younger defenders like Panagiotis Gionis, Ruan Phyllis, and Hao Yingxiao still call him the man who proved it could be done. He was more than a predecessor. He was proof that their style still mattered. In an interview, Joo once said, "I wasn't born to win every match, but I was born never to give up." That line didn't just summarize his career. It became his legacy. One not paved with gold medals, but with quiet, unwavering resolve. Years from now, people might remember the champions, the Olympic golds, the fastest smashes, but in the hearts of those who once watched with bated breath, who sat frozen through rally after rally, the name Joo Sae-hyuk will live on. Not as a relic, not as an exception, but as a beacon, the final warrior who stood guard over a dying art. Joo Sae-hyuk didn't need gold to enter the Hall of Fame. He earned his place with every breathless point, every impossible save, and the unshakable belief that defense is not defeat. In a world rushing forward, he slowed down. While others lunged, he waited. And in that stillness, he stood tall, like a mountain in a storm. Maybe one day, the modern game will forget the deep chops, the long-distance duels. Maybe the new generation won't choose the difficult road he took. But whenever someone speaks of endurance, of quiet defiance, of turning reaction into artistry, Joo Sae-hyuk's name will rise like a whisper across the court. Because in the end, this sport isn't just about who attacks better. It's about who refuses to fall. And Joo, the last guardian of defensive beauty, never fell. No fireworks, no headlines, just a paddle and a heart that never backed down. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through the story of Joo Sae-hyuk. If his spirit moved you, if his courage reminded you of what it means to stand tall in the face of overwhelming odds, then stay with us. Because next time on Ping Pong Dreams, another story awaits. Another heartbeat, another soul behind the paddle. Until then, keep fighting, keep dreaming, and never let the ball stop bouncing.